congratulations on this movie.
Thank you.
I like this movie a lot. I found it really sweet. I found it thought-provoking.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was just speaking with Rosamund, and we were talking about sort of the ideas of happiness and what can make you happy, and does it vary from country to country, as we see in the movie.
Yeah.
But you're in kind of a sort of a unique position, I think, in that you're a movie star, famous, you're around, and I wonder if when you were younger, you thought to yourself, man, you know, when I get famous, everything's going to be great. I'm going to be really happy. Like maybe you were like totally happy kid too, but then you get it, and you kind of go, you know what? It's not the panacea that I thought it was going to be. And so tell me just like. Because a lot of people would trade positions with you in a snap like that, but it's not necessarily a ticket for.
No, you have to be happy in order to enjoy that stuff. You know, I mean, and not to be sort of to bring it up in a facile way, but Robin Williams' death is definitely an indication of that. That you can be inordinately famous and supposedly rich or whatever, and still be unhappy. You know, those things are not the route to happiness. They're a way of, you know, if you are happy, you can enjoy that stuff. But we see it all the time in this business. I mean, the entertainment industry is filled with deeply insecure, unhappy people, and they're probably looking for some kind of happiness by doing this job. You know, I find for me, I have to be happy in my real life, in the real world, and from there, if I'm happy there, I can be happy elsewhere, and I can enjoy this job. You know, I've been desperately unhappy whilst being. You know, I remember when I first went to LA to do Mission Impossible 3, I wasn't in a great place, and I got there, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm in a film with Tom Cruise, and this and this and this, and yet I am unhappy. You know, and it's kind of, it was an epiphanal moment for me, because I realized, okay, this isn't how you get happy. You have to be happy before that. And the funny thing is, what you're saying about being a kid is that when you're a kid, if you have a normal childhood, you never think about what your happiness is going to be when you get older, because you're happy. You know, you're in an environment where you are utterly happy. It's what Christopher Plummer talks about in the movie, about the purity of childhood happiness.
You're unconditionally loved. You are, you know, you don't have to worry about taxes,
you're very
roof over your
safe.
head,
Exactly.
all that stuff. Well, it's interesting because I got ill last year. And had to go through a bunch of stuff, a bunch of treatments and things. And while I was going through the treatments, you just have time to think. You're sitting there hooked up to a thing, and it made me think about all the stuff that I thought would. And this is why I started with that question with you, because it made me think about all the stuff that actually is important versus what isn't. You know, like listen, we're in a pretty nice hotel room. You know, you're going to be in a limo later. All whatever. But that stuff really doesn't mean anything if in the larger sort of thing. And for me, it came down to like really primal, basic things. And that was sadly kind of an epiphany for me.
I agree. I think with this film people often will flippantly say, "Oh, well, come on, he's with Rosamund Pike. He lives in a nice house." Well, that's so missing the point. You know, you can have all that stuff. The point is, we take the least sympathetic demographic on the face of this earth. You know, the white middle class male, the white, upper middle class male, really, and say,
in London, your house is pretty nice.
Which is actually really in Vancouver. But and say he has a problem. You know, so that almost like the least sympathetic possible character you could have, and give him that problem, because it just sort of it just goes to show if you can be there and be unhappy, then anybody can be unhappy. You know? And it is about realizing that happiness is not some sort of, we're constantly led to believe that we can buy happiness. Constantly. I mean, commerce, retail, it's all about, buy this, wear this, eat this. All this will make you happy, and none of it will. It's all about quick fixes and shortcuts, when really happiness is something you experience along the way. It's not something you can ever move towards. It's like chasing a rainbow. You'll never get to it. It has to happen along the way. It's part of a continuum. And that continuum also features fear and sadness and all those things, because all of them reflect back to help you understand what happiness is.
I guess if you don't know the other stuff, how do you know when you're happy?
Well, exactly. And I had a friend of mine as well recently, who'd become ill, and when you suddenly are given that definition of what your life means, how fragile it can be, it helps you focus on, you know, the example with the making of the movie is being in Soweto in South Africa and seeing people living on the poverty line smiling more than the people that were living in the affluent areas. And that's because the people on the poverty line, although their lives were a lot harder, had a clearer idea of why they were smiling. You know, it's kind of and that sounds like I'm saying, be poor, you'll be happy. It's not the case. But people whose lives are slightly more in question have a clearer idea of what happiness is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Well, the more complicated life gets, the more complicated life gets.
Absolutely,
you know, the more stuff that's around you, the harder it is to sort of wade through the nonsense.
Totally. Choice, I think, is a weird thing of like, we have so much choice in sort of affluent Western society. We have so many TV channels. In fact, I think TV is a really good example. When you have, I remember back in the 80s in the UK, we had 4 channels.
Right.
And like you would pick something, you'd enjoy it. Now it's just change. And even something you would have watched back in the 80s, you think, no, there must be something better. Always. And you wind up with this just sort of indecision and malaise, and you never watch anything, and you end up unhappy. Whereas if you actually settle for something, you choose it, because your choices are limited, you tend to be a little bit more content.
I'll buy into that. I will buy into that. I think. You know, just the idea. What occurred to me when I was thinking about this, and this is what the movie sort of made me think about. It was, you know, was that we overburden ourselves. I think in a lot of ways with things that we don't need to, but become desperately important to us. And or we think that they're desperately important to us. Totally. And what I realized, you know, was that they weren't. And it honestly has made a huge difference.
Absolutely. They say, but you know, burn your house down. All the things that you cling to, which you think you need and you think make you happy, probably don't. You know, I think as animals, we're kind of on a basic evolutionary scale, we're built to kind of survive, and because of that we've accumulated all this junk around us to make life easier, and it's actually upset our body chemistry. You know, we're not as we should be in the wild.
Right.
You know? We're not living hand to mouth. We're not fighting to survive, and so we wind up this sort of odd zombie-like anesthetized species that are just walking around trying to find why we're not happy. You know, it's a strange condition.
And living to 105.
I know.
Who wants that?
I know. It's a very odd thing.
I think that's another thing that I realized. It was like, you know what? I don't think I want to live till 105. You know?
Yeah, I hear you. I know. And the key is always whatever time you have, it's to make the most of that. You know, and that's so trite. And that's the thing I love about the movie as well, is that you have a guy who has this book, and it's filled with stuff which, you know, and those little things that appear on the bottom of the screen range from kind of hallmark bullshit to genuine philosophical, you know, realizations. And it's just important to kind of the basics of it are quite simple, really. It's just about, you know, it's not. This film has really helped me understand that happiness is about. All right, come in. It's the journey. It's not the destination.
Well, I think my take was, because of some of the hallmarky things versus some of the more philosophical, is that the answer is right in the middle.
Absolutely, somewhere between those. Cliches are cliches for a reason, I guess.
Absolutely.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Well, best of luck.